It's time for Physician Family Finances, the show where physician moms and dads like you can get the answers and encouragement you need to turn a good earned income into great life outcomes for tomorrow and today.
Hello, physician moms and dads. I'm Nate Renicky, certified financial planner and primary advisor.
Kyle Helsley, certified financial planner, retirement investment specialist.
Nice. Kyle, we try to bring in investing questions when you're on the episode, so we have a few of those. And we also, college, I don't know why, but this time of year we tend to talk about college. So we got a little bit of that as well. So we're going to jump in. We got 4 questions for you today. First one, Kyle's from a urologist in Utah. Said, how should I decide how much U.S. versus international stocks to buy? So just a little bit on that. It's kind of easy to say, like, you should buy index funds. You should be fully diversified, but exactly how that's put into practice can be lost on some people. So just talking about the stock sleeve today, everyone who's listened to our podcast or is interested in good long-term investing usually says, I know I should buy some international and some US, but many times they don't know how much of each. So how do we choose how much to buy?
Yeah, I like to take the guesswork out of it, because when you're guessing, then you're kind of placing bets, if you will, and I don't like to do that with portfolios. So
Yeah.
really, you just want to buy what's out there in the world, so that you're capturing all the stocks worth having out there, and you are, averaging those returns out based off of the global market weighting of those stocks out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you just capture those returns, and some are going to win, some are going to lose. You don't know who those are going to be from year to year. So for example, you could say, oh, I'm hearing noise in the news that the US stock market's overvaluated right now and international stocks are undervaluated, so I should buy more international stocks. So you might be tempted to sell a whole bunch of US stocks, buy international stock, but that might not ring true, so don't make the gamble. Just
Mm-hmm.
buy what's available out there, and let the markets provide what the market's going to provide. And just take the guesswork out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
And
who would have guessed that in 2018, Finland would have had the best stock market return?
Yeah, we get reports on that, and it's very interesting to see, like, even people who are watching their investments closely couldn't tell you year to year which country did the best. And nobody would guess Finland, right? It's like nobody's going to go move their portfolio or most of even their international sleeve over to one specific country, but or even if you chose 5 countries, you wouldn't have chose Finland, right? So, but you said global weighting. What does that mean? Like, if you're deciding on a big U.S. stock fund versus a big international fund, like it's a good Vanguard or DFA fund that you like, how much should be U.S. and how much should be international, just amongst your stocks?
Yeah, like the actual percentages right now, or you mean just like
How do you figure that out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so there's a lot of different ways to measure indexes. I like to kind of go to some of the original, index places to see what they're doing. So I would look at Vanguard Index or State Street's indexes, and see, what their breakdown is. A lot of these companies have total world stock funds, where it's just one fund, mutual fund, or an ETF. It's got just U.S. and international, and you can see their breakdown, and you can look into that fund deeper, and you can kind of read their methodology and their practice. A really common one is weighting based off of market capitalization. So you take all the stocks international, all the stocks US, and they all have a dollar value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apple stock is worth this much, this company all over the world. And you total all that up and you go, well, what sector, how much of this total capital weighting is the US stock market? How much of that is the international stock market in terms of the dollar amount that they represent for the total? And that's how you break down your portfolio, because companies that are worth more, are going to be larger, bigger, longer standing companies. You probably want to have more, more of those. So that's why that's kind of one thing that, like, part of that methodology is like, well, this company is so large, I should have more of it in my portfolio, because it's making up more of that capital weighting.
Yeah.
Which is why, like,
Okay.
when you look in like S&P 500 funds and stuff like that, you see the largest companies that kind of have the highest holding percentage in those.
Got it. So
Yeah.
this isn't exactly U.S. versus international, but a lot of times people will try to pick based on sectors, which sectors they think are going to be the best, or which which country they think is going to be the best. The reality is that all that work that either you're doing or you're paying someone to do, um, a lot of times is somewhat for not. I mean, it's not a great return on your investment in those fees or that time, because let's say you thought tech stocks were going to do really well. Well, everyone knows tech stocks are doing well because they are doing really well, and so it's already weighted. If you buy into the U.S. stock fund, there's a whole bunch of tech stocks in there. So you don't have to worry that if you take this approach, you wouldn't have to worry that you're going to miss out on some giant sector because it's already in there. That's good though. So however big, the whatever international stocks, however much it represents of the total market, that's how much you buy. So we're not even choosing that, right? We're not even choosing how much to buy. The market is choosing for us. Okay. Next question is from an emergency medicine doc in New Jersey. We want to have a third child, but saving for college is expensive. Can we afford having another baby? I hate hearing this question. I mean, I get this question a lot. I understand this question, but it makes me sad. And the reason for that is I don't like to think that, especially for physicians and physician families who make plenty of money to raise however many children they want to raise, I don't think whether or not you can pay for every single dollar of college should dictate if you have another child. So I just want to get that out of the way. But some more practical ways to handle this is you have more children, you can just adjust your goals. We don't need to be dead set on exactly maybe what college your parents paid for, you should also pay for, because everyone's situation is a bit different. And the reality is that if you're saving well enough for retirement, you're going to have some money to help your children if they really needed it. At a worst case scenario, I feel like you get on the right foot with college, and if they choose a more expensive school, maybe you just work a year longer, right? It doesn't have to be, you need every nickel to send your 3 or 4 kids to Harvard, because a lot of them probably won't get into Harvard, right? And maybe they do choose an expensive school, and you cross that bridge when you get there. We're going to help people prepare for college. But when I hear this, I almost want to throw the college plan out the window and say, hey, look, like the families we work with are just so great, but they're also just too practical. They're so practical about how much they can pay for college and what kind of house they need to. I mean, when I was growing up, it was not even a big deal for someone to share a bedroom with their brother or sister. Like, it's okay. Like, having children is more important than this. But also, if that is a major concern for you, you really just, I mean, it's just a competing goal with everything else. You need to decide on if it's worth having a child, which I think it is, worth having a child that shares a bedroom, worth having a child that maybe goes to out-of-state public rather than private, worth adding someone to your family member versus having nicer cars. Like, to me, those are all trade-offs worth making. But I don't want people to get into the trap in their head that I want to live the exact same life before I had 4 kids versus when I compared to when I had 3 kids, and that's going to be what makes this decision for me. It's like, have those babies. I want more doctors' babies in this world, anyways. So maybe it's a little selfish.
I always tell people if I waited to start my family or have children when I was financially ready, I would never have started my family.
Never.
You just have to it's a decision, like you said, made with the heart.
Yes. Yeah.
And the rest falls out at the end. You figure the rest out.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. You just said it. I would not consider him wise counsel. Okay. But I had this person in my family. And I, of course, as being a personal finance guy, when I first got married, I was thinking about how much it would cost to have a baby. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. Childcare is expensive. And he's like, you'll figure it out. You'll just always figure it out. And I thought, that is so stupid. And then sure enough, we had babies and you just figure it out. you know, it just, you got to make it work, and life is a little different. Okay. Next question is from another emergency medicine doctor in Texas. I just discovered my advisor is double dipping, charging 1% assets under management plus an $1,100 a month planning fee. When I tried to leave, he claimed I'd owe $100,000 in taxes to move my money. Is he telling the truth, or is he holding my portfolio hostage? I actually got this question from a prospective client. I changed it a little bit, but they're really worried. They're like, man, this seems like an absurd amount of fees, which it was. I didn't even add this, but they're also charging them somehow on their 401k that they don't directly manage. And the $1,100 a month, I believe, was from before the physician had any money. They charged him a flat fee. And then when they started to have money, the 1% started to kick in, but they never dropped sort of that baseline fee of $1,100 a month. And so on $2 million, they're paying over 3% in fees. I mean, it was remarkable. And then they dropped that on them, like, oh, it's $100,000 a year, which, by the way, would only take 3 years for them to get their money back at those fees. But is this true? Like, when I hear this, I think that sounds like manipulation. But can you think of a scenario where it would cost them $100,000 in taxes to move the money?
Well, definitely would not involve a qualified account because, IRA or something, you just liquidate that. There's no taxes owed on that. So we have to be talking about a taxable account here. I mean, I can think of two situations I've encountered in the 11 years I've been doing this, and they're pretty rare. I mean, they're not common at all. I would say extremely uncommon. One is that the the financial custodian backbone for the trading and the transfers, the actual custodian of record, they're not on the automated ACATS transfer system or the DTC transfer system, which is the systems that allow you to transfer in kind assets to other firms, other custodians. And so if you're not on those systems, then you can't move the assets in kind. Then the only way to move them would be to sell the cash and move the cash, in which case you're stuck at this place because of that.
So you're saying, just to make sure the audience understands, you're saying normally with a big institution, you can just move, you don't have to sell anything. Therefore, you don't have to pay any taxes. You just move exactly what you have over to a different account, either with an advisor or in your own self-directed account. And then you can decide if you want to sell and pay the taxes later.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. And majority, I mean, I think every minute, every day that goes by, like the custodians who are on these in-kind transfer systems, they're they're not around anymore. They're closing their doors, they're getting absorbed because it's highly inefficient, and people get stuck there, and word starts to spread. Like, don't take your money there; it's stuck there forever, and it just doesn't survive. And so I'd be so surprised if that was the case here. But I mean, I get surprised all the time. These 1% exceptions, I do see them. And then the other scenario I can think of would be the type of investments that are held in the taxable account. So there's two that come to mind. One would be some sort of shares with a fee load on it, like a B class shares with a back end load fee on it. So the advisor gets a fee once they sell the fund to get out of it, and it's part of the agreement when you buy the fund. You buy into it, you don't pay a fee to buy into the fund, but the fee is paid when it's sold. So oftentimes I see these back end load shares have to be sold before they're transferred because it's part of the agreement, and the advisor gets their back end fee off of that. And then kind of touching on that same concept, because oftentimes these back end load shares are kind of they're the way that the fees wrap in it, they don't always transfer through these automated systems, so they have to be sold before they can be transferred. Regardless if there's a back end or a front load fee, it's just these proprietary funds. I mean, sometimes these advisors have these buy these specialty funds that are only offered at this where they keep the accounts that they manage, and as a result, none of these other custodians out here will hold those funds. They don't recognize
Hmm.
them as a security they'll receive and manage and hold, and so then you can't move it because no one
Understood.
will accept it because it's special. Those are the only two scenarios I can think of that would kind of get you stuck in a taxable account and not able to transfer without selling. I mean,
Pretty uncommon.
95, 98% of the time, what I'm seeing with clients is you just do an ACAT or a DTC, which is less cost,
Yeah.
and still get the same job done.
I don't believe that that's the case for this person. I just want to, we just said like the 1% chance. Most physicians that I see that come through the door, their advisors at some big institution, and at a minimum, uh, they can move their accounts over to retail. So even if you have these B shares and you just think like I don't want to sell for some reason, you know, yeah, for whatever reason, they're maybe even if it's a not a great fund, but it's okay, and you just don't want to pay $100,000 in taxes now. Um, you can still move the money over to the retail side and just stop paying the advisor fees. Doesn't mean you get out of those funds. But let's just imagine all of this was true. There's no chance I would recommend staying with an advisor who puts you in these B shares. Like imagine paying 1% and paying a planning fee and getting sold B shares. There's no chance this person is not, it's just an egregious amount of fees. So you might have to gnaw your arm off to get out of this, but I highly doubt it. Okay. Last question of the day is from a dermatologist in Washington. Every time I get a statement from my current financial advisor, I see dozens of different funds and tickers. If the goal is just to track the market and grow my wealth, why is my portfolio so busy? Are they actually doing something sophisticated here to beat the average, or are they just making it complicated for the sake of it? This is a loaded question, and I have to be careful when answering it because I actually don't know. I don't know. I haven't. This is another prospect that asked me this question. I don't know for sure exactly why there's so many tickers, but I can tell you what I usually see. First things first, this advisor's goal is not to track the market. There's much easier ways just to track the market. And usually when that happens, what they're selling you is I can beat the market or I can outperform whatever benchmark you're thinking of. Right? Let's just imagine they said I can outperform the S&P 500. Well, they can't do that by buying a broad market index fund or buying the S&P 500. So they have to try a whole bunch of different things. And the question is, can they do it? Do you think they will be able to successfully do it? Our take on this as a firm is that the answer is probably not. That's what the data says. Every reputable, uh, data set that we've gotten, every reputable book that we've read about investing, says that something like 90% of fund managers, this isn't even like a little old financial advisor in your backyard. This is like institutional fund managers can't beat the market for 10 years. But on top of that, you're not talking about an institutional investor. You're talking about just some guy like you or me, Kyle. And not only can they probably not beat the market for 10 years statistically, something like 90% can't, they can't do it on a risk adjusted basis. And they certainly can't do it net of fees. And the people who can do it, usually you won't have access to them as a retail investor. So, maybe there is one person out there that has somehow cracked the code, but I highly doubt it. And the point is, their goal is not to track the market. They are selling you more than that. That is their value proposition. I can think of some other reasons why this might be the case, though, like if I'm trying to be charitable to the advisor. But what's your take on advisors who try to beat the market?
I like to lean on my real experience, So like the 10 years of looking at portfolios and analyzing funds and clients' accounts, I love it. I love a nice robust 401k pick list, because I get to to see lots of different types of funds and do lots of comparisons. And um, you know, I'll see. This seems like I see this all the time. I'll be looking at a fund. I'll tell right away it's got an active management component, from it, and I'm looking at the returns and I'm comparing it to an apples to apples, another fund that's just an index fund of, kind of the same, an apples to apples comparison of the same goals of these funds, and see which one outperforms net of fees. And so many times I see like, oh wow, this fund actually did outperform the index by, X basis points, but oh, the higher fee for that fund after, the return net of fees was, less than the index, right
Mm-hmm.
about there. You know what I mean? It's like, well, okay, they did good and they were able to earn their fee back that period, but what's going to happen in the future? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I see that a lot. And then, every once in a while, like I think, the research that you were talking about showed about 90%. I mean, I think that's pretty close to what I see in real time too, is when I'm comparing actively managed funds that I come across versus the index. I see more times than not, it's underperforming, and oftentimes it's the fees.
Yeah.
They might not that really has a big effect on it, because a lot of times, especially mutual funds and things that I see, a lot of times the active component is there's just some slight tilts, in the portfolio. They're not going too far from the index, and they
Mm-hmm.
do get that better performance, but then the fees come out, and
Yeah.
you're kind of right back to buying the index, and
Yeah.
you know, yeah,
And maybe they are tilting somewhere and that works for a few years, but you have to ask yourself the question, will they be able to tilt in the right direction forever? Right. And I know that, and talking to you about this for years, it's, the lost opportunity, or let's say the years that inevitably they get the tilt wrong. It's like the average investor is going to look at it and say, well, 9 out of 10 times, or it only has to be 6 out of 10 times that they get it right. But that's actually not true, because sometimes if they get the tilt wrong enough, that you missed out. It's the opportunity cost of getting it wrong. And so let's say 1 year you underperformed, but how much? By how much? Like you might have you might have underperformed by so much that it wipes out all the overperformance they've gotten, especially net of fees. So, everyone's heard us beat this drum. We believe in investing in the whole market, participating in just the growth of the world. But there are some reasons why this might be happening that aren't so damning, which is, a lot of times clients are the ones driving the ship, the investor, not the advisor. And sometimes advisors just take orders from clients. I heard, India is the next big sector. I want to be in India. Or I heard tech stocks. And the advisor just says, okay, well, it's your money. So, and that, I mean, it is your money. So I don't know if that's the case here, just because the nature of this question and the way they asked it, it's almost like they didn't ask for this, but that could be the case. And then let's see, there's another part of this here where let's say your advisor, rather than picking 3 funds or 4 funds like we might, let's say they're an advisor that thought they should pick 6 funds or 7, and that's just the way they do it. But then if they're also harvesting your losses, so market goes down and you sell a position and then you buy into the market with a different position, over decades, that can turn into 24 positions really easily. So it is true that if you're harvesting losses in your account, your portfolio is going to get more complicated, or it's going to appear more complicated. The idea is that it's a similar portfolio, but you just have more positions. But the thing people really need to know is that you don't need to rely on the ability of some wonderkind advisor. You can retire well, send your kids to college, have a paid off house, and live a nice, meaningful life, just investing in the whole market, but investing often and trying to control taxes. That we've seen that over and over and over again. It starts with a plan, and it ends, and from beginning to end just takes a ton of consistency. And that isn't the case for everyone, but for physicians, they make a good enough income where we've seen hundreds of success stories and just taking a more simple approach, which doesn't feel that simple sometimes, but it doesn't have to be overly complicated in your portfolio. So, and most of the time, what we hear from people is that they don't even consider or think about what they may have lost by missing out on some terrific investment opportunity. Sometimes there's people missed the boat on a couple things in the headlines, and they don't like that. But at the end of the day, the goal is to invest in a regret-free way. And if you're constantly trying to pick the right stock, you will be met with regret one way or another. Didn't buy enough, didn't buy it all. I just would ask everybody to try to avoid that altogether. You'll live a happier life, hopefully. Okay, that is everything for today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you liked this episode, please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss when a new episode gets released every Wednesday. You can also leave us a rating. We would really appreciate that on any platform that you're listening to this episode on. Or you can schedule an interview if you'd like to work with us at physicianfamily.com. But if you're not ready for that, you can send us a question at podcast@physicianfamily.com. We'll answer your question even if it doesn't make it on the episode. And until next time, remember, you're not just making a living, you're making a life.
Are you ready to turn worries about taxes and investing into a plan for college and retirement? If you're evaluating your options and want to learn more, visit physicianfamily.com and click Get Started. Or you can ask a question of your own by emailing podcast@physicianfamily.com. See marketing disclosures at physicianfamily.com/disclosures.